So, this is the VR and 360 video. I think it was appropriate to kind of, put them together, considering they both kind of have very similar receptacles of receiving lately. And I think it really applies here at PodCamp because, it's a very kind of accessible and new medium that I think a lot of people are going to be interested in the coming days. So we have a lot of tools here. We have a lot of fun toys here. I almost forgot. We also have this. We'll talk about like what these things are in a bit. But myself, of course, I've been using it with Sorgatron Media, kind of trying to get ahead on what the next maybe curve of video might be. And that's why we have things like this Ricoh Theta S. That is a pretty awesome, about $350 device, and been playing with some other stuff we can talk about here in a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about that too, but I want to get through introductions. So if you want to introduce yourself.
All right, I'm Becky Torbachkin. I'm a game designer and a UX designer, and I do some writing as well, and I'm working on an indie game for VR that hopefully I will finish someday.
You're the actual developer here. You're like,
I'm a designer. I
just don't point funny-looking things at something, and we get cool stuff to happen.
I move 3D things around and hope they compile.
Yes, exactly. And did you mention the meetup group?
Oh, yes, and we have a Pittsburgh VR meetup.
And that's how I met you, and
yes.
and that was really cool, and I'm hoping I'm less busy so I can get to it again. Up at our Friends Looking for Group, where we hosted the Friday night party this year.
That looked really fun.
And there's a LAN party, and there's a LAN party like getting started in the other room for Overwatch, and we're just like, it was like this interesting two different worlds happening here. If you haven't had a chance, go check out Looking for Group and some great stuff. And also with us,
Christopher Whitlatch. I'm by day I work for the Pittsburgh Foundation, so I'm very interested in how the VR and 360 video is going to impact nonprofits. But by night, I play around with an immersive gaming company, so that's why I'm really, really interested as well. So.
Mm-hmm. And we've done some projects together and been discussing a lot of opportunities that, obviously that these kinds of things kind of can get you into. Let's talk about the accessibility to begin with. We have, like I said, a lot of kind of samples here on the table in front of us. Like I said, I mentioned the Ricoh Theta S, a good $350 camera that takes really great pictures and kind of okay 360 video, actually. You can think of as a less rugged GoPro of things. We've also been playing with the Gear 360, which just looks like a ball. Basically, and it mostly interfaces with Samsung phones, and that's had some really interesting results as well. But the big thing, obviously, like creators can do a lot of stuff, but the biggest thing is a few years ago when Google had a piece of cardboard underneath everybody's seat at Google I/O, and it was basically these things, and this is just something that your phone goes into, and there's actually a phone in that one over there. And it's just got some plastic lenses. You can get plans online and get the materials for under $20 and build this yourself. Maybe some Velcro on it to hold things together and everything. That was the first thing for me that said, oh, wait a minute. This is and it's it's not the Oculus, it's not the big $1,500 headsets or anything like that, but it's like a nice entryway into like these immersive things that you can create, which leads to people picking up these things, people making other things, people trying to reach out. For instance, this is Katie Dutters donated this for example. This is actually the promotion. Verizon was giving away these things, and this is a little BB-8. BB-8, thank you. Wow. I just lost my nerd card on that one. I'm sorry, I was watching Star Trek this weekend.
You don't have to worry, you're at PodCamp.
Yeah, that's true.
We all have the answer.
There you go. But anyways, but there's a giveaway. This is something that they could put out there, and you download an app with it, and there was, and I played with it. Like there's these little video scenes that just immerse you into it. And I like to get in a little deeper on what that is with you, Chris. But that's another sample that a nonprofit put together.
Yes, this was put together as a campaign by Planned Parenthood, and what it is meant to do is give you an immersive experience of what it's like to go drive through the protest line on the way to a clinic. For a nonprofit, I think it helps them tell their story in an immersive way that allows you to have more of an experience, and in which case maybe a little bit more empathy, and that's what VR and 360 video can do.
Right, and that's kind of like, as a video producer, that's kind of what we're kind of thinking about for there. And of course, on the step up from there is this wonderful gadget, which if you are an Android Samsung user, which is kind of becoming the next iPhone in my mind, a lot of the new ones in the last, I'd say, probably 3 years are compatible to these Samsung Gear VR headsets. And it's really just kind of like a higher end Google Cardboard in the long run, right? And it's using Oculus technology, which is similar to pretty much just kind of boiled down from what those big headsets are. And it interfaces in there, does the right thing, and there are VR games. It's got a little touchpad on the side. This is actually the SDK unit that my friend thankfully gifted me when he upgraded his, because he's got some really cool connections. But it's enough to get in there. And we were all playing like the Suicide promotional game that was on there, and all like shooting those weird mutant things from the movie or whatever the heck they were. And again, a better way, higher resolution, a little better than this, but still not as great as that big $600 headset that requires a $1,500 PC, but still just a better experience and just more accessible for, hopefully you already have this phone, right? Or well, there's a reason for me to get a Samsung phone. And then this is, I think this retails for $100 now.
It's $99, I think.
$99, but there's like I know my friend.
That came down like $100 within like 6 months.
Right.
At Christmas it was like $199.
The retail was $99, and I think the SDK was $199 beforehand. Okay. So, and they've been like giving this away if you buy a phone on certain carriers and stuff, or you buy 2 Samsung phones and we'll give you a Gear VR headset. You can find it on eBay for $50. That's not the hard part. And even just a kind of a step forward, Google actually has a platform coming out where they're going to do a headset like this, I believe. You might know a little bit more about this than I do.
Well, I'm all in Oculus.
But it looks like, I think they're calling it Dreamwave, I think they're calling it, which is weird. That's the old HTML editor in American Media. But and it's a standard, and it's going to be mostly for newer, higher def phones to have even higher quality than what this does. And I think it will be also compatible with like the iPhone and a lot of the newer Android phones. I think it's slated for this fall. Again, taking this concept and growing it a little bit. So we already have the hardware. Like that can be a good starting point, and they're just wrapping around a little bit of assistive technology to get you into it.
And the gaming experience goes up a notch from this to that as well.
Right, because there are games just for cardboard as well, but they're very simple. You look around, and maybe there's actually a button on there that interfaces, and I think it's using NFC perhaps.
Yeah, like the magnet.
Yeah, there's a little magnet that detects, and so you do have like a button that you can like select, like kind of turn your head and point at something like a menu item or shoot a gun at something.
Right.
So it's really cool.
But then this one with the little touchpad is sort of like a nice little step up in that you get a little bit more interaction options there.
Right, and you can also buy a gamepad that will. Yeah. That I bought like the little chintzy like $15 one that had like all Japanese writing on it, and Bluetoothed it to it, and that like stepped up the gameplay a little bit too. And nothing immersive. It's not like you're playing Doom on this thing as far as like running around doing stuff. Like everything's pretty locked down.
I think that's important though. The games that move I've found are very disorienting for me because my body wants to keep walking around the room as I'm doing it on the screen. But with 360 and the Suicide Squad game that we played this morning, you are rooted in one place, and you're just spinning on that kind of foundation, I guess. You know?
Yeah, I
and
haven't
that's
encountered.
far less disorienting.
I haven't encountered a game that like you actually flew or walked or ran or whatever around that wasn't making most people sick. I mean, there are a lot of games that use other tactics like to teleport and stuff like that and jump from place to place, and that is usually better. And you could probably do that with this, but then that's even weirder because I feel like you are more like in the room. Your mind is more in the room that you're in. I kept like right before this keep thinking like, why isn't Katie there? Like, why don't I see her over here? I know she's over there.
Well, the best was I was at Replay FX a couple weeks ago, and they're showing off a pinball game where it was cool because it looks like you're looking over the pinball machine, and it kind of felt right. And they had a gamepad to simulate the flippers and everything. And he's telling me about it, and I'm like, this is really cool. And I kept kind of like, oh yeah, this is over here. And I took the headset off, and it was this. It was a Gear VR that they had, and he was gone. And I was, oh, where did he go? Like I didn't see him. I have no idea where he went.
Talking to him.
Yeah. I was like talking to him for like 5 minutes. I thought,
stuff, man.
and he was responding to me at least for a little bit of it. At least I think he was. But it's again, you really are kind of immersed in that kind of thing.
Yeah. In my talks, I try to figure out how to tell this to people that can't try it, and I have a GIF of like a little girl that's using it, and she tries to take the controllers from the Vive and put them on the table. The table is a virtual table; it's not there, and she just wipes out. And I always feel really bad, like showing this little girl like fall over on the floor. But it does sort of prove the point that like the items feel real, and you're really disconnected from where you are.
That's actually I almost took a fall when I was doing the HTC Vive. If you're not familiar, there's the Oculus, which is I think it can be described as very similar to this. It's hooked up to a computer. And I think it's a $600 headset, right? And then, but again, they say you need like a $1,500 gaming PC to run this stuff appropriately.
Ultimately, you need basically like a brand new graphics card.
Yeah.
So if you just bought your computer and you're a gamer, you're probably okay. But otherwise, you probably need to upgrade.
But it's a little intimidating. Like, I need like $2,000 to get this thing going, But
at least,
and it's more of a sit-down experience, maybe gamepad, mouse kind of thing. Vive is you have, and Oculus is going to have this soon as well, but they came with two controllers that if the game, has the mechanism, you see your hands. It moves where you think your hand is in your vision. And they also have these cameras that tell where you are and kind of build like a virtual wall that will come up. So you do walk around. And I'm playing Office Simulator. I recommend it if you have a chance to get on a Vive. Looking for Group has one, and it's tremendous. But yeah, it's like, you have to pick this thing up, and you're just like in an office.
Is it Job Simulator?
Job Simulator. I'm sorry.
No problem.
I played the Office one. My friend played the convenience store version of it. But no, it was like pick this CD up off the floor and put it in the computer. And I went down to one knee to pick it up with my Vive controller, and then I almost put my hand on the desk. That didn't exist. And I'm like, nope, no. That's not really there. Let's get up,
Yes.
But again, it's that kind of like, it's real enough. And it's a very cartoony game too.
Mm-hmm.
Like
I think a lot of them are at this point because we're just in kind of like a first generation of development that you can't push it too far. And if you did, if you're at the like Ready Player One status of our dreams too quickly, I think
I mean, when you were talking
you would
about,
scare people at this point.
When you were talking about getting disoriented, right? Like there are a lot of concerns of making people sick while they're in game, and one of the things that can make people sick is if the performance lags. So if you have these cartoony graphics that are kind of simple and not too intensive on your graphics card, then you can more easily make sure that your performance is like on point, and that's not going to be the cause of that nausea. So yeah, there's a big incentive to kind of like not go too realistic, but there are a few, but like there are also a lot of them that make you sick. So.
And it's also important to note that like things like this or even this are kind of underpowered to get that kind of sync right, and it's just like milliseconds, tiny little bits, right? But it's enough that your brain has a disconnect. Leo Laporte always describes this on the Twit network as it basically triggers that thing in your head that's kind of like, oh, this doesn't match what I'm seeing from what I'm feeling. so I must be on LSD and I need to vomit. was what he describes, and I didn't think somebody had explained it to him. Like that was like somebody that was really big and a real big developer of this kind of stuff.
I've been inside ones where I was schizophrenic, where part of my brain had definitely checked into that virtual world, and the other part of my brain goes, you're standing in a coffee shop right now, and there are chairs around you, and if you move, you're going to bump into the chairs, so don't move.
Right. Well, there was Katie. When she first tried this thing, we were doing the Awesome Cast. So she's in the studio and on the couch, and there's Chilla right there beside him, and he's like, she's like looking back here and stuff, and like basically like awkwardly looking at him the entire time because we just had her play stuff while we were doing the podcast, and it was just fantastic to watch, and I've almost, what's that? Yeah. Uncomfortably close to him and everything, and you almost want to like reach out and you poke somebody next to you or something like that, right? That kind of situation.
You don't realize you're staring at them.
Exactly. Or they walk away and you're like, who am I talking to? But the biggest thing I've noticed with that was there's a temple run on here, where it's first person, you're just going straight and it weaves and stuff. And that was the first game where I'm like, well, yep, I'm sick.
Yeah, that sounds like the worst. Yeah.
Oh, no. If you're just like, well, how bad can this get? Go download Temple Run if you have the Gear VR, and I'm sure there's probably like a cardboard version of it as well. So
no, there's a percentage of people that don't get sick at all ever, for whatever reason.
Is that connected with like the people with the problems with 3D movies? Like I can't go to a 3D movie with my wife
I
because
can't see 3D movies because I'm sort of partially blind in this eye.
Okay.
But I can still see I can actually not see the cardboard ones, but I can see everything up from that. And I can't see 3D movies. But I get motion sick on everything, real life and virtual. But my husband doesn't get motion sick much at all, but he's been more sick in VR than I have. So I don't know if it's connected. I mean, I think, so one of the things when you're talking about the feeling like you're on drugs or something, I know one explanation that I've heard, and I think they really don't know what causes it, so they're all kind of theories, is that that there were stuff that you would eat that was poisonous, that for some people, when they would feel that feeling, they would throw up, and so it activates that part of your brain. It poisons like the vestibular system, basically.
Yeah.
And so they think some people are evolved to have that trait where you eject the poison, but that not everyone is. And so maybe some people just would have just eaten the poison and been fine. Or not fine. But yeah, so like the lead, oh God, John Carmack is notoriously, he doesn't get any motion sickness at all, so everything seems fine to him.
And that's the lead. He's the lead program guy between like Doom and Quake and its
now
software.
at Oculus.
And now at Oculus, I think he builds rockets in his spare time. Right. I think last I knew, but yeah, and this is a guy that like went on off a thing. He's just like, I want to see if I can put Doom on the iPhone, like back on like the 3G, And he's like, now I'm working on virtual reality. Like he's kind of the like the guy I look to was like, okay, what's next in gaming, right?
Yeah.
So.
He's really great, and if you have the opportunity to like see him talk, he's kind of rambly, but it's also super entertaining. He's just really says the best stuff. So he'll be talking at the Oculus developer conference that's coming up, and they finally lengthened his talk to 90 minutes because he never keeps it to an hour.
Yeah. Sounds right.
So going along those lines, so a lot of the programmers are moving over to virtual reality that were talented in other areas. Is it accessible for other programmers to program for VR at this point?
I think, it is and it isn't. Like, a lot of game developers are already working in 3D, and so a lot of the skills and techniques and stuff in terms of just being able to create content are already there. If you're making an RPG or something like that, you're already making a 3D world with avatars and graphics in it. But at the same time, the design of them needs to change. So the UI patterns and the UX patterns that we're used to using, or the game mechanics that we're used to using, like running around and shooting stuff, aren't necessarily good. And so I think it's not a big jump if you're already making and shipping games to be kind of switching over to that. But it is sort of hard to figure out what to make necessarily and what's a good experience. And then I think it's still time consuming. Game development is always pretty intensive. But one of the biggest criticisms I've heard of a lot of the big games that are out there right now are that they're 2 hours long. right? They're like $50, like just like Fallout 4, which I spent probably 200 hours playing, right? And then, you know, if you get one of the different RPGs and stuff like that, they might be anywhere from an hour to 2 hours, and you're like, this was the same price, right? So as much as, and a lot of users are even sensitive to that. You can read in the reviews and see people talking about like, you know, I understand this is a new medium and we need to help like support it, but like, come on guys, like, this is $50.
Yeah, and it's also like everything. And maybe, you know, I played just a little bit on the bigger headsets and a lot on this because it really feels like an app store, and games are like $10 on here, right? Or there's a summer sale and I just clean up on that, you know. But still, it seems like the experiences are these little bite size. Like you play.
Yeah.
The Gunjack was one that I've been playing, and it's in this Eve universe, which, you know, there's a version of it called Valkyrie that they're showing off. I just look up Siri. You know, there's a version that like the PlayStation VR that's supposed to be coming out has been you know, showing off, right? And this is basically just you're a gunner on the side of a ship, and there's stuff you shoot at. You know, it's kind of like it feels like you have a segment of a game or a boiled down version of the game that I really it reminds me of when the Wii came out. And it's like, well, everything feels like a mini game.
Like demoware.
Yeah, like demoware. Like, we're still, no, Siri, you have no opinion on this. Go away.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it's also like we're introducing people to these concepts that are the new mechanics. Mm-hmm. And we don't know how to make you want to sit down and play it for 3 hours like you did Grand Theft Auto.
Right, and I mean, some of that is sort of how you package the product too. Like there's sort of the design of the product as well as how you present it to people. So like some of them are doing better than others. Like I think Forgotten Realms is the one with sort of RPG like. And it's kind of, I think in a lot of ways that's the thing that like everybody wants, is they want to go and like go in a castle and fight skeletons.
People want to disappear for 2 hours, but is that realistic? Like your face starts sweating in these things.
It's true, yeah. And so they have like one level, but I'm pretty sure that it's like early access or like beta, right? Mm-hmm. So when you get it, you're not like shocked that it's as shocked as one level, because they never said it was done, right? Compared to if you say like, here's our complete game we've been working on for 2 years and it's 2 hours.
I feel like the iPhone kind of did this too, because I remember when it was a big deal when Infinity Blade came out, because it was the first game that was like, hey, we're doing the Unreal Engine, which is like, I mean, if you boot up about any game on an Xbox or a PlayStation, like you see the Unreal logo, like it's like 70% of the games, it feels like, or at least the ones I buy, because it's always those types of games. But it's a standard, and now we're building it for this little thing in our pocket, you know, 5 years ago when that was really impressive. And it's felt like, well, this isn't Unreal. This is weird swipey fighting game, right? Yeah. But again, it's also building for this mechanic of, you know, this swipey thing, and now we have Pokemon, and it's a whole different world. Side note that maybe slightly goes along with this, because I was a Google Glass user. If Pokemon Go was on Google Glass, we'd still be using it. Right?
I think you're right. I think you're right.
I mean, come on. Yeah. Could you imagine if those crossed over? But.
So I think, you know, the other thing to think about with this is that, so we've talked about gaming as being, you know, sitting down, still more of a console experience, but a lot of this technology is actually going out and into location-based playing games. And again, it's $50 and it's maybe only an hour, but you're playing with a team. There's a couple examples I'd bring to mind in New York City for the release of Ghostbusters. They had basically mapped a warehouse, and you went into the warehouse and you actually were busting ghosts just like you would, you know, in the movie. So you're actually playing the story. Universal, for their Halloween nights this year, one of the haunted houses on the VIP experience, you will be wearing a headset and things will be materializing based on how it's mapped.
There are roller coasters. There are roller coasters where you wear it with. I think they are Samsung Gears.
Yeah.
You're already on a roller coaster outside, and you have to dive into a virtual world, like the real world of driving a roller coaster isn't real enough.
Isn't that? But that's been done. I mean, that's where VR started, right? Was in the simulators where you actually got into the simulator and it moved.
The Back to the Future one where you're rocking back and forth and there's a giant screen.
Which some made you sick too.
Yeah.
You know, Body Wars at Disney World made me really sick.
I mean, between the heyday of like explosion of like 80s and 90s of VR stuff and this kind of new explosion, that's sort of where it still survived, is in the theme parks and Disney in particular. And there were a lot of like
it really
show games
enhances that story.
That stuff,
I think you can play any story, you can play in any world, you can have any experience you want, any fantasy you want.
Or you can have a nicer living room while you watch Netflix.
Yeah.
That you can do.
Which is actually really, when I don't care about, I don't want to watch Criminal Minds that my wife wants to. I'm just like, well, I want to watch BoJack Horseman, whatever,
But
you
on
know?
the downside, you can't read your phone at the same time.
Yeah, that's like, I can only do one thing.
I
can look at this
can't
potted plant over
multitask?
here, and yeah. And that's I think that's interesting. I know there's been, and this is going to become a social thing too. I have not gone into them, but there's a couple of like social VR apps on there that I've installed, but I just I don't think I'm ready for this yet. Every time I'm like, I don't think I'm ready for that. But that's kind of you think Second Life, how big that was, and there's the HoloLens demo where they put the person in the room with you and you see it through that concept. Which for those not unfamiliar, HoloLens is Microsoft's headset, which really isn't virtual reality. It's more augmented reality, as in, I could look out and see virtual people in the seats, and it looks like they're kind of there. Or there was some kind of gun game where your arm turns into a Mega Man hand cannon and there's stuff flying around, right? Great demos, but I'm kind of curious how they're going to work out in
I think augmented reality is a big part of this too, and I think it's going to drive it.
Yeah.
Because of Pokemon Go.
There's a camera. There's a camera on this side, and I think there might be an app or two that may take advantage of that. But you got to think, as it is, you can look through, and there's a camera, and they can lay stuff on top of whatever that camera is doing. I think that could be really interesting, and could make this do a little bit more than even what the Oculus and the Vive could be doing. And the Vive has a camera, but that's more just to see your hands.
And you're not going to leave the room without it. So.
Right. Oh yeah. I don't know about walking down the street with this thing. I don't know if that's going to be too great. But you're in a room and there's a Pikachu over there. You know what I mean?
For museums and tourism and stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I know I was at one conference where there was a speaker that's a museum designer, and he was really excited about the potential for, integrating either VR experiences inside museums so that you could go places in the museum that you couldn't normally get to, Babylon or something, right? Or to be able to walk around the museum and see, the information instead of having to listen to those geeky little headsets or awkwardly stand there while you slowly read the tag and someone else is I want to read the tag. And they're slowly bumping you out of the way. You could read it at your leisure.
Stand there and there's a virtual, Civil War soldier standing next to the thing telling you about an actor that just pops up, or a CG of it or something.
And he can talk at the speed that's right for you, in the language that's right for you, and someone else could hear a different language.
Right. It's just a whole different level and layer of experience. Or you can do like this one fellow did, where he's got tired of riding on his stationary bike every day. So he took the Gear VR and developed a thing with Street View that put it into a 3D mapping. So as he's biking, he's going down the road with Street View built out of the topography and pictures from Street View that mostly work. So he could bike from one end of the UK to the other. And see it as he goes and do that real time.
No, does it make him sick if he's pedaling?
That's a good question. But I think psychologically, that's been shown to you bike harder, you bike longer, because your brain is actually being entertained at that point. It's actually in the activity that you're doing, rather than sitting there going, I'm sitting here pedaling a bike.
You walk further to unlock that Poke Egg.
Yeah.
That you do.
I mean, it's you I'm doing more than just walking to walk, and I think that's pretty cool.
And I think that Pokemon's a prime example of that. It got people up, it got people active, it got people doing things, but it also got people learning history. Mm-hmm. Which I don't know if they even realize that they're doing it. Every time they're hitting a Pokestop, in many cases they're getting a piece of history.
And we're turning into another thing with this, but I don't know how many things down here like, oh, there's a mural over there.
Yeah, well, I went back to my hometown of Uniontown, and I wanted to play Pokemon, and I was like, I didn't know we had a memorial to,
There's like
this.
some,
I didn't know this happened here.
over on Boulevard, the alleys by the
there.
garage, there's some like electric company clock building. I went to the Art Institute in like 2000 and walked by it like every day for how long? I never knew that was there. It's incredible.
That's the beauty that augmented reality can do for you, and you add another layer with VR on top of that.
So we talked a bit about the development of VR and stuff. I want to roll back a little bit on like kind of 360 and the accessibility on that as well, because I mean it's related, but it's a different kind of storytelling. My first experience with it that really kind of captured my imagination was New York Times has a VR app, and so is Discovery, and there's the Riot app and everything like that. And the first one I watched was back when like there was everybody in the election, like when there was like 6 people on both sides or whatever the case was, right? And they would take something similar to this, and they put it on a tripod and actually put it in the crowd amongst the people. So there you got, I don't know, Trump or Bernie or Ted Cruz or whatever, and you have a little bit of a voiceover talking about like how they're speaking and how the people are reacting, and you get to look around at the person beside you, and you really got to feel like, oh, this is why, you see whatever on TV and you think, oh, that person's whatever, and I don't get why people are behind that, but you're looking and you kind of get a little bit of a feeling of the vibe, right? Or the guy that I think it was a New York Times cover where it was a giant picture they put on the sidewalk on that one building that's like kind of looks like the Wood Street Station where it's kind of cornered in, and talked about how they set that up and they hung you over outside the helicopter when he took the picture and everything, So being agoraphobic, that was really interesting. But again, like kind of that interesting storytelling side of things, and we've been playing with some really interesting things with this since.
And I think 360 is moving further along as far as storytelling because it's far more accessible.
Facebook was a big part of
VR,
it.
and Facebook has been a big part of it. Absolutely, and you should definitely talk about that. But my first experience with 360 was I was plopped down in the middle of Aleppo in Syria, which has been bombed out, damaged, and I was standing there and I was controlling the movement of the camera. That's the beauty of 360, and there was day-to-day life going on as you heard gunshots in the background, and it really put you into that scene and gave you that experience. I think what we used it for, Mike, you and I, we had a rally in Westmoreland County where we put it down in the middle. And we could have just filmed the speaker speaking, and you could have gotten the message. But by putting it down in the middle, you saw people's reactions. You saw the cheers, the claps. You saw where they were, engaged and why they were engaged,
signs,
and the type of people that were there. So it really puts you at the scene, almost at the time, even if it's not live.
And that's important that it captures something that a regular camera wouldn't capture, right? Just watching us, right? It's like an okay experience to watch in 2D, but 3D.
You get the full surround experience, right? We've been using it since, of course, pictures obviously have been really big things. I took it to the Gathering of the Juggalos to get some experiences. Getting right up front with Green Jello in their punk rock puppet show in the smallest stage in the place at 3 a.m. It was pretty fantastic, and he's right there flipping off this camera.
So you were there in the moment, but I actually was in the moment. I didn't go. I was at home.
Yeah.
But I was watching it.
Yeah.
After you posted it, I was watching it, and I felt like I was there as well, even though it was your experience.
Between that and we've been taking some pictures with the Hell on Hills 5K in Beachview, and the big thing is it's being targeted as the world's steepest 5K. And so we've been taking pictures of the hills, so we've had fun with that. Where if you look at Boosted when we talked about that, they've been doing awesome things with Facebook Live to reveal the hills as we go, because the course isn't revealed yet. You don't know which of those many horrible hills over in that neighborhood you're going up. And
maybe that's for the best.
So you look, and there's the lineup of the people, including the people that were avid runners that never seen the hill before, that we blindfolded and tried to make it not look like a kidnapping. And so I'm like, just pose. So you just see them on the street, and then you turn around and look up the hill when you're on it. So have some fun with that. You can play with that a little bit. Another early one that caught my attention was Gary Vaynerchuk. Of course. So he does this Ask Gary V, and he had somebody come in and do a 361. And he's at a table, and he's like answering the questions, and talking to the camera and everything. And then he tosses, hey, somebody ask a question. And the guy's sitting over here, and his Twitter pops up over his head. And it's like, okay, so there's that connection there. Or maybe this guy is a guest, and he answers the question. Well, you don't realize it, maybe not right away. But there's another Gary V sitting in a chair over here, playing on his phone. This is a 20-minute video, right? And you could go see it on YouTube, too. So he's over there playing on his phone, and then finally, like the last question, he's like, "I think you should take this one," and he pops his head up and answers the question. And like they shot him or they looped him. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't paid that much attention.
That's some heavy stitching in the editing to get that.
Like that's like oh no, we can have some fun with this.
Yeah.
Not as big of an in-depth experience of making a VR world or something like that, but it's just like we can create something with this thing, manipulate this flat plane and then wrap it around you, and I've really been investigating like what those tools are and what can we do with something like that. So, and that's been a really, really fun process so far.
That's awesome.
And as far as we should talk about Facebook, of course,
yes,
I think it's been really big about introducing those kinds of things because again, I'm still having trouble putting things in YouTube, to be quite honest. I'm still like sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and that's just, we have to work with this metadata and everything like that. But Facebook, it's the easiest thing, and it's the thing that I know people are going to see because it's the thing that's going to pop up in your feed, and it's native, and they're getting really behind it, and people react to that thing. Every time I put it up for the project that we did, for Hell on Hills, we actually went in and shot the studios for KDKA. It's been just people have been reacting to that, and they're not using any of this stuff. They're using this. And
you can watch it right on your phone, and you get the same experience.
And even these apps like the Riot, which has some of the videos, I think maybe even the one you might have been talking about.
Yeah, they
too.
have the Aleppo video on Riot. They created that one.
You can just hold this in front of you and look around and let it be kind of the window into whatever that experience is. So like that, again, lowers the accessibility, and now more people can do this. So if you have something like these guys, you can go watch that video with your phone right now. You don't have to build a cardboard for the whole $20.
The cardboard kind of, I think, psychologically pulls you into where that's the only thing you're focusing on, whereas the phone, you're still in reality,
right,
so to speak.
It feels like a window.
But it is a very immersive experience. I mean, you're swimming with dolphins, you're riding a roller coaster, you were in the cockpit of a plane. That was one I watched earlier.
You're on a roller coaster.
Amazing experience.
You're in here. Look at the roller coaster video.
The roller coaster sounds like I might want that to be a little further away from reality.
Well, I think he was filming. I was going, whoa! So I was actually feeling like I was actually on that roller coaster.
Nice.
So. And that was just on the cardboard, and I have just the iPhone 5S in there. So that's even like the smaller window. Like it makes your window just like kind of thin like this because the screen's so small and it's overlapping everything. So like I say, there's a lot of options for that, and I think that people, much like we started getting into audio podcasting 10 years ago because it became accessible, and now video is so much. People were filming. I got all that equipment back there, and people are filming with iPhones and a Rode microphone this weekend. I think this is like kind of hitting that nexus point, and even like discussions have been, when do our phones get it? The phones have experimented. There's been versions with the 3D video, 3D pictures. I think HTC put some out. When do we get something that has, whatever this function is going to be? That I can't imagine the case on that thing to protect that lens.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. but because I'll need that because I'll drop the thing.
I think GoPro is pushing this market too.
Right, absolutely.
Because they've brought out specialty rigs for 360 video and VR that are a little bit more expensive because you're talking about
theirs was
10 cameras rather than one camera.
Yeah,
but
because theirs was tying a bunch of GoPros together. And then it was like $1,500 for just the rig, but the rig also came with their special stitching software, which was taking all the images and putting them together into one thing.
They've condensed that now down to a product.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, they've just announced that they've condensed that rig down into one product with the lenses, so you don't have to put camera after camera in.
And there's higher end professional things. I was looking at the monstrosity that the WWE has been using. It looks like an alien. There was about a $3,500 prosumer model. So just like the cameras that I use, they're like about $3,000 cameras. I'm like, okay, that's the budget that is for me, a small video producer that's doing real stuff for companies, foundations, and everything like that. And then there's the $60,000 one that Alex Lindsay has that took them like a couple of days to process. It's like, so I don't think everybody's doing that, but even there's like NASCAR's playing with this. NASCAR has one, and they're showing us this when I was talking to the guys at KDKA because CPS, but like that follows the cars in the 360 and again is putting that information and embedding it and making it part of the experience. So just some really interesting applications there. So it's just kind of the beginning of this. I think
that's the good part, that this is the beginning of this. So anybody out there, don't feel like you can't try. Things are not so professional at this point that it drives you out of the market. Any good idea is a good idea.
And it's a really welcoming, exciting time. I think a lot of people are just really super jazzed to be even doing it.
Can you toss me that one with all the marker on it? I have to show that off to the camera real quick, and I have to tell a story on this really quick. And as far as accessibility, there is a 360 thing that you can do just with your one iPhone now. So these are my friends at Splash in Germany. You can download the app. It's iPhone, at least for now. I don't know if they have an Android version yet. It's been getting better. But the whole idea is, it's kind of like when you used to take a panorama and you take multiple pictures and you stitch them together. You're taking the 360 of pictures, and they have this interesting video, like this square. If there's somebody dancing right here in the middle, you can take a video of that and you look around and post it as the 360 thing on Facebook and everything. And again, it's an accessible thing. Now the fun part was I had been talking with them about stuff, and I think we interviewed them too. So they sent me a self-made Google Cardboard that they decorated with marker. It says Michael Love from Splash in Berlin. So that was kind of a fun thing. And it's this is the standard. This is the Google Cardboard, the Google Cardboard that they handed out and you can get from Google itself. It's all it is. But I just love, and there was this wonderful handwritten note that looks like a ransom letter, and I just appreciated it, and I have to give them a shout out for that. Stay wet is their thing. So this is Splash. They have a wonderful,
that is incredibly creative use of just the basic cardboard, and then you step up to something like this that's an actual promotional campaign,
right?
Or the BB-8 that you have over there. But this, even having them printed, is not very expensive these days.
No, especially if you're doing
printing anything else, basically.
And actually, it was funny because we were playing with that one, and there's a QR code at the bottom. I was like, I wonder what this goes to, and it goes to the website that made it, I think.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to go to the app.
I wonder if the nonprofit realizes that QR code is on there and going to the to their supplier and not to them. So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe they got a discount.
but even that, it's a great introduction to that. So, I guess just for closing remarks, what do you think is next? Not everybody's going to be into this stuff in 5 years or something, but what do you think is going to be the next kind of step forward in either the 360 or the VR or accessibility space?
That's a good question.
The next game you're working on?
Maybe. I think what I'm excited about personally is, for games to get longer and sort of deeper and richer. And I'm also excited about the social stuff, so potential for social and I'm really hoping there's room for like innovation in terms of how we interact as people in social spaces, because I think it starts to push issues like harassment and personal space and how do we structure communities into all kinds of interesting things.
I'm sorry, did you hear about I think it was a Google research group talking about the personal space thing?
I don't know. I heard about like the invisible bubble that people recommend.
This personal space bubble that appears when you step away from the virtual poker table with everybody. Because I guess people like in these social games will just like come like right up on you.
Yeah.
You know, and you're just like, oh, there's somebody there because you're into it, right? And it just like freaks people out. And
the biggest one that I've played around with is Altspace VR, and you can go onto that just on your desktop, or like it has like a bunch of different platforms you can go on. And they've been trying to work on that, and they have like a personal bubble. I think that they've started doing, but there's like these creepy like GIFs online where they started to like make it so that the eyes move. I don't know how they do it, but like so that like there's like this one I have in my talk where the guy like leans forward and you can see his eyes moving around. It's just like, there's so much potential for creepiness, but also like, you know, it's interesting. Like you don't have this sort of understanding of who you're in the room with, for example, and so people will do stuff and say stuff that they, you know, might not if they realize there was like a 18-year-old girl next to them, but they actually aren't thinking that that's who's next to them. So I think there's like interesting things that will be kind of pushed to a head in terms of like evolving design and standards for like community nurturing and stuff, and I think that's really exciting too.
Oh, we've developed it over these years of being able to text and chat room
Right.
each other, and that's been an ongoing thing as we new
Yeah.
ways to be both good and bad
Yes.
as human nature. So.
I think the numbers are staggering. The prediction for the gear this year is like $3 billion worldwide.
And is that for capturing and
I think
receiving?
that's mostly on the actually the headset, and not necessarily on the capturing within that number. And they're predicting 183% growth year over year to 2020 with this. So it's definitely we're at the start of a high growth rate.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, there's a study going on at Columbia University where they're studying how when you're telling a story using this thing, where does empathy start, and where does it get too intense to where you're no longer empathetic, you're terrified,
Being traumatized.
traumatized, shocked. So they're actually studying this, which will, I think, guide
Really
storytellers
Right.
going forward.
And we're talking about with that because there's a certain point where there's acting and a camera and something like this,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you're in the doctor's office with the girl that's about to have the abortion, and then you get they flash back to them driving up to it, and somebody leans in the window is talking to them, and you see the lineup. Then it goes to CG.
They made a conscious choice to go to CG in this
Right.
when you got to the protesters, because they felt it would be too intense,
Right.
and they felt it would turn you off.
Yeah.
Instead of showing you what it's like for that
Yeah.
person to go through that. I think, as you're looking at this, the better you can tell stories, the more immersive you can tell stories, the more actions you can have from that, be it empathy, be it experience, or in Charity Water's case, which we've discussed previously, they actually used it and raised twice the amount of money they would normally raise at their gala by showing a 360 video of a young girl going to get water.
And for context, it wasn't just we put this out and you can get it on your phone and whatever. People found it, started giving money. Like they were at a gala that the donors that have the money, the big money were at.
They would have raised money no matter what.
Yeah.
But after showing this video, showing the 360 video of that experience, they raised double.
Yeah. And that makes perfect sense in a way, but yeah.
Awesome. So we have no time. We have no time. So we'll kind of roll out here. But we have these. If anybody wants to try any of them out here afterwards or in the lobby or anything, we'll have them. We have
Definitely
a couple things
play
queued up.
Suicide Squad.
Definitely play
That was pretty
Suicide
fun,
Squad.
yeah.
A lot of fun.
Apparently.
It was.
We're having a blast with that. So thank you, everybody, and go try some of the stuff out for sure. Get a cardboard, check out the apps, check out some of the 360 videos, even on YouTube. Just look for 360 on YouTube. There's a lot of really cool couple examples.
And bring your own ideas.
And bring your own ideas. Yeah.
Yes, please.
If you have any ideas, tell her as a developer. We got a couple of cameras we're playing with. I'm just like we're in the Slack. Like, tell me what can I do with this thing? Like, just give me ideas, and we have a couple of things on the list. So, all right, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.